There we go.
There we go. No countdown today. We're live. Hey, Jen. How are you?
Hello. I am good. It's a lovely, sunny, happy first day of summer. Yes, my
It's
favorite time
today.
of year. It's today. It is today.
I
My
have, by the
favorite.
way, it's always weirded me out that summer is in the middle of summer.
I
Like,
know. I
the
know.
kids have been out for a
Yeah.
month.
It's usually hotter. It's been hot now, not this year, but normally it's usually been quite a bit fairly hot before summer actually gets here. But it's the same thing with winter, especially like in the Midwest. You have
Yeah.
snow when it's still technically fall. So,
And in the spring, girl, we get it sometimes
yeah, I
like
have that
May or
spring
March,
too.
not May, but March.
But
Yeah,
poor
it's insane.
spring is just like the kind of non-existent season. You're like, I don't
And
know,
that's when
maybe
I
you'll
was
get
born.
here.
I love spring. I
I
love
know.
it. Speaking of born, somebody's having a birthday next week.
Yes, somebody, that would be me.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. I'm very
You're
excited. I
welcome.
mean, I'm not necessarily, I mean, I guess, it's one of those things. I mean, it sort of beats the alternative, right?
Well, okay, I had a chat just the other day with somebody, and she was telling me her birthday, and I was telling her, the milestone birthday for me this upcoming year.
Mhm.
And I was like, same thing, it beats the alternative. And you know what she said? It was something really beautiful. It was like, actually, if we would have been born a couple of hundred years ago, we may not have lived this long.
Right?
And, malaria could have gotten us, or,
Mhm.
we wouldn't have lived in a situation like we do today. We
Yeah.
wouldn't have had food readily accessible. Things wouldn't have happened. So she's like,
Mhm.
actually, I think it's beautiful that we can celebrate every year that we get to live. It's a year
Absolutely.
longer than what some of our ancestors got to. And I'm like, thank you for the reminder of perspective.
That's so true, especially when you look at history and you look at all of the things. I mean, I was just thinking because I'm doing this historical trip for my birthday. I'm retracing Laura Ingalls Wilder's
I love it.
steps, which I'm very excited about. And one of the things that was so attractive about her, and she's really the reason why I became a writer, um, she lived through so much change. But then I
Yeah.
started thinking about all the change I've lived through. And I've lived through a lot of change. I mean,
Mhm.
from the having just a dial phone stuck on the wall in your
Dude, I
house,
remember those.
you could only go as far as the cord, right? You didn't take
So
a phone
annoying.
with you everywhere like we do now. No answering machine, no call waiting, none of that stuff. We
Mhm.
didn't have air conditioning growing up. We had a swamp cooler. It was
Ew.
great.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Dude,
it's pretty fun.
my mom was just reminding me the other day about how it wasn't that long ago, Jen, when she was married. Okay, so when she was married with her in her first marriage, she lived in a whole different city than her mom, and she was super close to her mom. And she would call her mom like once a month for like 2 or 3 minutes, and the fees were
A
so
long distance
astronomical.
calls. Yes.
Yes, and so was
Even
sad.
even here, when I grew up, I lived in the town. I went to a private Christian school in high school, and so we had people from all over the place. And I lived in the middle, so people from this town couldn't call this town without long distance charges. So they could call me. I could call both of them without long distance charges. So I was like the operator half the time. Plus, I had my own phone line in my room, which was a big
I
deal.
did too. I did too. That was like super special.
It really was. It was
My
really,
mom worked for the phone company though. So
yeah,
because of that, that was like a perk that they gave her. And so people thought I was super cool. I didn't take full advantage of it as I should have.
I had one of those big, I don't know, French whatever phones, with the
Uh-huh. The
handset that
thing
came
that
down
hangs
and
over.
around. Yeah, I had one of
Oh my
those. So
gosh.
it was really fun. But yeah, I mean, think about that, and like now, that's no big deal. Like, what is long distance? I was
I didn't
amazed.
even know they charge.
My kids were caught in an airport one time. They were traveling when we lived in the Midwest. They'd come back to visit family in California, and I hadn't gone with them. So they were traveling alone. My daughter was a teenager then, so they were capable. But their plane, there was a change up in their planes or something like that. So they had a layover, a longer layover. And they were too young to have cell phones. Of course, back then, it was probably 10 years ago, so I wouldn't have given them a cell phone then. But Caitlin knew how to call me collect from a payphone. I had told her once. I said, if you ever see a payphone, you just pick it up, you dial the number, the operator will get on, and you say you
And
want to
it's
call collect. And she had remembered that. And I was so impressed that she knew how to pick up a phone and call me collect.
Don't only prisoners do that nowadays, Jen? I mean, what the skill set we teach our children.
I'm
That's
amazed you
huge.
found a payphone, right? I mean, I don't know. There are hardly payphones anywhere anymore. So,
Oh my gosh. When I worked at the movie theater, my first real job, like I had a couple of jobs, but like my first real job, I remember there was a section where there were payphones. Like the
mhm.
payphones were,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
when they took that out, we were all like, what are you going to do if you need to make a phone call? And it's like, oh,
right.
wait. So then they put like a chair in. Yeah, I remember these things. And I mean, I remember when we got our first computer,
Yeah.
I remember going to college and we didn't have laptops. Like
Mhm.
I had to my big old desktop sitting at the computer,
Mhm.
at I just so much change has happened just in technology, but
So
also in
much,
us
so
as
quickly.
people too,
Yeah.
right? Like so I'm sure that your journey is going to do a lot of deep reflection on that too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things to remember too. I mean, and you probably feel similar. As I get older, I learn more. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm really kind of still getting to my peak. Like I'm not at my
Yeah.
peak yet. I'm still on that journey. I was just
Yeah.
listening to a podcast with the founder of Ritz Carlton. He's in
Mhm.
his 80s. And he's like, I'm still thinking of new things to do. I'm still excited about life. I still have things I want to do. He still walks an hour a day. He used to run marathons, but now he's in his 80s, so he just walks a lot.
That's awesome.
But, and I love that. Like you said, your brain, you need to keep stimulating yourself. You need to keep active. And I think this is one
Mhm.
of the lovely things. I was talking to a potential client yesterday
Mhm.
who's working on a book with her mother who has Parkinson's. And it was her
Mm.
mother's passion project. And now it's kind of become hers. And one of the things we discussed is that writing is a lovely thing that continues even as you get older. So, yes, sitting at a desk all day is not the most healthy thing, but you're not limited to do that with writing. So there is software that accommodates. You can
Mhm.
dictate and have it transcribed. Now AI will do some of that for you. You
Mhm.
can work with somebody, and that's like in the mother-daughter partnership.
Yeah.
The ideas are still the mother's, the daughter's executing, and they're brainstorming and hashing it out together. And
Mhm.
so writing is one of those things that can take you all the way through your life.
Yeah.
And what I love about it so much with a book is it's an amazing legacy to leave
It
because your copyright is your life plus 70 years. And so if
love
you think about
that.
that's like your great grandchildren.
Yeah.
And I would love to have writings from my grandmother or my great grandmother.
Me too.
I love that. And so
Oh, I
what a
mean, Jen, I
wonderful
cherish
thing
the
to do.
like handwritten notes that my grandma
Yeah,
sent me in a card. I can
yeah,
imagine a whole book of insights that I could go back to and hear her voice.
yeah.
I would give
You
anything for
could,
that.
and like I like to tell people, you can spend your money a lot of different ways, right? Vacations and hobbies and stuff that are very meaningful to you in the
Mhm.
moment and build great memories. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there's
Mhm.
really nothing that will leave the kind of legacy that a book will leave. And
Absolutely.
so I just encourage people that as you get older, many people pick up writing later in life because they
Mhm.
have a little more time. Maybe their kids are out of the house. Maybe they've retired. They have a lot more time and space in their world, and they have a lot of life experience to put in. Things like technology changes, things like memories. It's There's always whatever generation you're in, retro.
Yeah.
Books that are kind of about your coming of age, your childhood, those can be very popular at that time because we get to a point and we look back fondly to our childhood and things that we remember doing. And that's why like the whatever lunchbox was cool when you were a kid, right? Like you can
Mhm.
find those on eBay because people are like, I
Mhm.
wanted that lunchbox as a kid, or I wanted that toy, or I wanted
Mhm.
that whatever. Right now you have the means to go get it. So
Yes.
you go
Oh,
get it.
that's so fun.
And so I
That's
think
so
writing is
fun.
a lovely way to put that down and convey that to
Yeah.
your children, to your grandchildren, to
Yeah.
other people that don't know what it was like. And so while Laura Ingalls Wilder was the first person that, I had really connected with that had lived that kind of long life with a lot of change, we all have that. And it's a wonderful legacy to leave to those that come after us. So,
It is, and if writing a and obviously be on the page is for authors, so many of you guys personally won't use this, but this is a beautiful gift you can give to somebody else, and that is a tool that I have used in the past called Storyworth. which allows you to, it gives you 52 writing prompts, one prompt a week. And when you respond to the email with the writing prompt, it gets put into a book that at the end of the year you can edit, add photos, whatever, and you can populate it and print it. I gave it to my husband and my dad for Father's Day a couple years ago. I don't know if my dad's finished it, which is a little annoying. I need to work with him on that. But Corey did and got it printed, and it's beautiful. And so it's a beautiful gift as a writer and author to give to somebody who you want them to capture their legacy. It asks questions that are like, what was your favorite lunchbox as a kid? Or did you have a good relationship with your family? Or what's your favorite memory? Or whatever. I mean, and you can also like adapt it. So it's just truly beautiful and something to consider. And now in our discussion today on editing, Jen, that you don't need to worry about editing that sucker. But we are wanting you to make sure that you're thinking about appropriate editing if you are really embracing what a book can do and using your story, your legacy, your skill set, everything in between accordingly. Oh, Zan asked, what's the name of that? Story Worth. I'll throw it in the chat so that you can take a peek at it. But it's awesome, Zan, and I think it's wonderful, especially to give to those people in our lives who are see us and see what we do and secretively want to do what we do, but they probably will never take that stab or that next step.
Overwhelming, right? And that's what I tell people is just pick a memory, just pick a little slice of life. Don't feel like you have to write your whole life story. I mean, over time you may, but just pick a little slice. Like you said, what was your favorite lunchbox? What was your favorite, what are your elementary school memories? Whatever it might be, right? And so I think some of those can be lovely, lovely ways to get into the writing world and to capture those memories. And somehow that segues into editing.
It does. It does. Well, and I want to just say, here's the link. Go to storyworth.com. There's a welcome.storyworth.com. Zan, at the day at which we're doing this live stream right now, it looks like they have a $10 off now through the 18th, which is actually not, we've already passed that. So ignore that. But anyways, yes, enjoy that. All right. Yes. Segue to editing. It is, last week, Jen, we talked about editing in the lens of when to self-edit, when to not, how to create an environment that allows you to better, to still have your creative juices flowing, but, kind of when to invite editing into the journey. And today I thought about picking your brain around what actually always confuses me. And I think just because I don't do it on the daily, and that is really the different intricacies of the types of editing and maybe some editing techniques that you might recommend. So maybe we could start with the different types of editing. And I know that's like just a level set, but I think we all need to know they're not the same.
Well, this is editing week, apparently, because I read a book. I proofread a book for another editor who's having a traditionally published book on editing. And so I did that this week. Yesterday, I did a webinar on editing for the Author Learning
Yes,
Center.
you did.
And today we're talking about editing. I feel like maybe I need to write an editing book.
Jen, hello. I think so.
Yeah, I think maybe I do. So yes, let me just say, editing is funny. As I am going through in preparation for my Laura Ingalls Wilder trip, I have a book called Pioneer Girl. So it was Laura Ingalls Wilder's original manuscript called Pioneer Girl. It was never published, but she drew from it for all of her books and stuff. But it's basically mostly her life story as she wrote it, one long story. And so South Dakota Press put it out and annotated it. With letters, because she worked heavily. Her daughter, Rose Wilder Lane, was a very successful writer. And so she helped her mother edit it, and they talked through the story and things like that. And what's really interesting in reading through those notes and the comments and stuff like that on there is that publishing hasn't changed much in 100 years. Traditional publishing, right? All the things that she's still going through and editing decisions that they're making and all that kind of thing. And so what is still true today is what people, everybody has different terms for editing. Editing has been around for a long time. There's different levels of it, and people use different terms. And so this gets to be really confusing if you don't know, you just tend to think of editing, especially if it's something like you're coming from school where maybe you swapped papers in school and you were supposed to edit each other's work and you were just marking typos and grammar
Yes.
and punctuation and stuff like that. So I like to put editing kind of into 3 buckets. They're kind of 3 main buckets. And I'll tell you kind of how I divide them up. Other people divide them up differently. So if you are talking to an editor, make sure you are clear on what kind of editing you're talking about. Be very careful, get their definitions. If they say, I'm going to do this kind of edit, say, what does that mean to you? What are you going to cover? So you are clear about what we're talking about. So the first bucket is the macro, the very big level stuff. I call that a developmental edit. Some people call it a substantive edit. Those are really kind of, we're looking at structural things. We're not looking at typos and sentences and paragraphs. You will get sometimes you'll get your pages marked up, but mostly you're going to get a report. And it's going to be saying, here's your character, this character, we need to strengthen his journey. Here's how you need to do it. Here's the places that needs to happen. It'll discuss the plot. If you are in nonfiction, we're going to talk about your reader journey through the book, or we're going to talk about the path of transformation that you're taking them through the book. Is it making sense? Do you need to be fleshed out more? Do you need to trim things down more? Big picture stuff. I do tend to mark up pages a little bit with that because I'll say,
how could you not?
Yeah, I'm going to say, hey, this is what I'm talking about right here. This is one of those places I'm talking about. So I'll do that kind of thing, but you're not going to get like, I'm not going to fix you can turn it into me with bad grammar or bad punctuation, and I'm not going to fix those things because that's not what I'm looking at. And the brain can only handle a few things at once. So
can I ask your question, a high level question on this one? When, from your perspective when you have your developmental hat on.
Yeah.
Do you read the book once from to back and then reread it? Do you find that you do one solid read? Like, what is it that somebody who is investing in this, what should they be expecting on that?
Yeah, I mean, some authors are different. Or some editors are different. I know some editors who like to read it all the way through just to get a good overview before they mark anything. As I'm reading, I start making notes to myself about what I'm seeing. And hey, is this is a concern? Is this going to pay off later? Right? I'll make notes to myself as I go through. After I've gone through a certain amount, then I'm like, okay, and then I go back. And so I usually end up going through the manuscript a few times, one really good solid read, but then I go back and, I'll go back and forth within it. Okay, wait, you revealed this here. I really think this needs to be up here. Where's a good place for that? I'll go up and look at it. And then when I'm all done, I go back and I read through my comments and everything, because now I know the whole thing. I want to see if that all flows and makes sense, if I have anything I want to change about that. So, yeah.
That's how I do the book marketing plans. Like when I read a book for a book marketing plan, I end up probably reading the book twice. But if somebody tells me read the book, don't do anything, and then reread it, that would drive me insane. I
have to make notes. Yeah.
I have to make notes. Like there's no promise that I will remember what I did.
Yes, because as you have more knowledge, you might forget that, up here, this was confusing. On the first read, because your reader's going to be approaching it. And so I like to kind of approach it like a reader does. Is this confusing? Is this clear? Do I know what's going on here? So I definitely like to make notes to that extent. In between the first and second buckets are kind of a little bit of a hybrid, and those would be line edits or content edits. And so they don't rise to the level of a developmental edit. But my second bucket, which is a copy edit, line and content edits I call them copy edit plus, right? So while they're looking at paragraph, sentence structure, flow, that kind of thing, they do address some content issues. So they would say, if I think we need more information here, we need,
or this is confusing or whatever.
I don't think you need this, right? It's not to the level of a developmental edit, but it's not simply a copy edit. So it's kind of a little bit in between. And then that second bucket of the copy edit, that's really what most people think of editing, which is polishing everything, making it look really clean, making it understandable, creating clarity, just making for a good reading experience for your reader. Now, then the final bucket is proofreading. And I like to call this get another editor, because proofreading is simply looking for typos. That's it.
Which will be there.
So they're like little ninjas. They come in and they change around while you're not looking. They're there somehow.
They're the
Someone who's
gnats that live in
never
your house that don't show up until the banana goes bad. That's what they are.
exactly right. Yes, they're like the fruit
Yeah.
flies.
The
Um,
fruit flies.
so the reason you want someone who has never ever read your book before, clean, fresh eyes to look at it because they will see you're only looking for mistakes. And one of the problems I have with authors is they're still trying to make changes at the proofreading level. And if you do that, you're going to introduce error.
Yep.
At this level, we are only fixing errors. If everything has been done perfectly up to this point, hey, I've never seen it happen, but
I
theoretically, the
haven't either.
proofreader could have nothing to say on your page, right? That would be the ideal situation. But no, they will find stuff because
They will.
you just can't. I mean, I have 6 editors for all of my books before it goes to beta readers. My beta readers still find stuff. I make changes. I put up the final file. I still have readers who find a typo or whatever, right? I have books that have been out 5 years and I'll have a reader say, "Hey, by the way,
Jen, I don't know that I ever told you when I was reading the audiobook of Make Your Author Impact at the very end, like I found a few things along the way, which I expected, right? And lovely and grateful that I could make those changes. No big
yeah,
deal. But when I got to the very end, I had to record an audio sample and we selected to do the back cover. There was a glaring edit typo on the back cover. And I'm like, are you kidding? How many eyeballs looked at this? How does this happen? It's just proof. And so even those of us in the industry, you're too close to it. It can't be you for the proofreading. You should read it again afterwards, but you need somebody else, another set of eyeballs for that final proofreading.
My favorite story about this is that in the traditional publishing world, there's a story about it was a novel, a romance novel, probably, or some sort of romantic novel, where the main character, the hero, the love interest, they changed his name about 2/3 of the way through the book. Nobody caught it. Nobody caught it. It went to press that way with a different name.
No.
And that just goes to show your brain will read
what it wants
is supposed to be there rather than what is actually there. And that is the challenge with editing because you're fighting your brain. It is a lovely predictive machine. It's trying to save you time. It's like, I know what's supposed to be there. Just skip. Don't burn any glucose on that one. Just keep on going.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That's how they happen. And so fresh eyes for your proofread. So those are kind of the 3 big buckets. Make sure people are clear about what they're actually providing for you, what you are looking for, what kind of help you need. Don't contract for a copy edit when you really need a developmental edit. And I find this is a big common problem. People just think they need a copy edit. I always ask for a sample because I can tell from the beginning whether or not you actually need a developmental edit. Most people do, unless you've had a developmental edit or you're a very experienced author. You really do need that to make your story just sing. I mean, I tell you, your best bang for your time if you focus on those big level character and plot issues. That makes for a much better story. You can always find somebody to help you with the copy editing part, but that developmental editing is a challenge for most people.
So I have 2 follow-up questions I think will round out our chat today. You didn't know you were on the hot seat. I mean, you did, but not this one. If you had to pick, what is your personal favorite? Like if someone comes to you and they go, wherever they are in their journey, which one gives you like, I want to jump and skip and do a backflip if you could? Which is your favorite out of the 3?
I love developmental editing. That's my favorite. I really do. I love helping the story get better. I love crafting. I love the analysis of it. I love helping people make a better book. Copy editing will fix errors, but it's only going to get you so far. It's not going to really make you have a better book. But I really want people to have the best book that they can have. And that's where that comes in developmental editing. And I don't even know how many books I've worked on in my lifetime. It's lots. But all of that knowledge contributes to me helping. I have that whole, library in my brain, helping people bringing to the page so they can have a better product. And there are some people that they love the copying. They love looking for the little details. They love the little, they love that. And that's fantastic. It's definitely a different mindset for sure. So
yeah. Well, and from a marketer standpoint, I am grateful when authors go through the developmental edit because I tell people, you want a book to sell, write a good book.
You have to.
You have
And
to.
I'm fond of saying good marketing makes a bad product fail faster.
Yeah, I love it. Did you see? I had to share this. Zan's
And,
beautiful post. The
yeah,
developmental edit completely changed my book for the better.
yeah,
And Jennifer was a part of that. She said, "Thank you. That's really
yeah,
sweet."
that was fun.
Um,
And Dan that's a perfect example. She had a lot of really great ideas,
yeah,
great characters. But I was able to say, hey, I think if we make some of these changes, it's going to be
yeah,
even more of the story that you really do want to tell.
that you want to get
It's
across.
really your story, but I think this will be even
Yeah,
more your story if we can make some of these changes. And how do you know? I mean, it's like for most people, this is like just first, second, third, fourth book that they've worked on. Um,
yeah, not 17.
Right. Yeah. Not as many as one as
You,
I've written or as I've worked on. And so I have all of that knowledge. It's like with any expert, right? They have this breadth of knowledge that they're
I do.
bringing. And most people only have the experience of their own particular
Mhm.
experience, their own particular project. The same thing with marketing. You have all of these books that you've helped put out
Yeah,
in the world. And so you know what works, you know what doesn't work.
yeah.
And you have all of that experience to bring
Yeah.
to your projects. And that's what
It
makes
takes great courage for an author to allow somebody to come in and give them feedback on their baby, and so I think that that's huge. It actually is a kind of a ticker inside of me when I kind of do my own interviewing of authors that could be to potential clients, and I hear that they've done a developmental edit. It tells me that they are open-minded, and I
yeah.
think that's a beautiful thing in the marketing space too. Okay, my second and last question before I want to know what book you're reading. um, this is a marketing versus editing um, battle. But a friend of mine who does some writing for ghostwriting for authors or for just anybody, any businesses, she did a blog once to talk about the difference between copy and content.
Hmm. Yeah.
Jen, what do you think about? Because you mentioned the copy edit.
Hmm.
I want people to know there, if this is important, there is a difference between copy and content. How would you answer that, Jen?
So, and I would say this is more towards the nonfiction space where this
Yeah.
would come up more. But copy is simply the words on the page, right?
Yep.
That's just the words on the page. Content is the message you're trying to get across. What are you trying to say? And
Yeah.
so those two things need to work together. Sometimes your copy is at war with your content,
I know.
and they
It
need to work
is.
together. And a good copy editor will get that out for you, right? A
Yeah.
good line edit, a good content edit. That's
Yeah.
their point. Is like, what are we trying to say? Let's help you say this in a more clear fashion.
Yeah.
Very true in, like I said, in the nonfiction space,
Yeah.
newspaper, magazine, those kinds of
Mhm.
articles where you are. How are we going to get this point, especially a
Yeah.
shorter work? I mean, obviously, in a longer work too, you want them all to
Sure.
work together. But in a short piece where
Mhm.
you don't have a lot of words to get your content across,
Yeah.
every bit of copy needs to pull its weight. And so that's kind of how those two things work together.
Yes. So I just love hearing your perspective on it. When it comes to the marketing side of things, if you hear us talk about content and copy, when I'm talking about content, I'm double checking my brain as I'm saying this. Okay, let me backtrack. When I'm talking about copy, I'm talking about the words on the page. I'm talking about um, like let me think, like a blog is copy, right? Like it's a story, it's whatever, but the content on like website content, that is sellable,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
different type of sales content versus messaging copy.
yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
just be aware those two words don't mean the same thing, and I
No,
think it's
and
important for us to
yes,
just be
it's really
that.
true.
Yeah.
Even in the fiction space, this is a little bit of a line between plot and story. Some people
Yes.
are like, what's the difference between plot and story? Well, that's a whole other thing. We're not going to get into it.
No, not today, but there is a difference.
But you can start splitting hairs, and it sort of doesn't matter. Other than to the point is that there, like with any industry, you have insider language, insider jargon that sometimes means different than it would
Yes.
in the real world.
Yeah.
So be very clear. Don't be afraid. Oh, I might look stupid if I ask a question. You need to be very clear about what you're getting and what is involved. Because most people probably wouldn't know the difference between a copy edit and a content edit, and they're quite different. And
They are.
so
They are.
you want to know, you want to be clear. So ask a lot of questions. And if they don't want to answer your questions or they make you feel stupid, that's not the person you should be working with.
Yep. Find someone else. Find
No,
someone else. There's too
absolutely.
many people out there.
Yeah.
Jen, what are you reading?
I am reading Pioneer Girl,
Yep.
the biography of Laura Ingalls Wilder. It's cool. It's a huge book. It's beautiful, but it is big because the manuscript's in the middle, and then there's all these annotated footnotes along the side. And the research on it is fantastic. I mean, Laura will mention a person in her life, and there will be a footnote, and the footnotes will be about, oh, we researched the census, and this is the person that the census records mentioned, or this is the newspaper article that talks about this. I mean, the amount of research into it is just lovely. I mean, if I had all the time in the world, that's the book I would have wanted to write. It really is. So I'm loving it so much. It's been tons of fun. I have a lot of Laura Ingalls Wilder books about her on my shelf. And then for my birthday, I bought myself the thing I wanted as a kid and never had it, but the full jacketed hardcover Laura Ingalls Wilder set is sitting on my shelf in my library.
Oh, that's amazing.
All I had as a kid was the yellow Scholastic ones, the little paperbacks, and they're just, tattered and worn and well loved. But I always wanted the full hardcover, with the full color Garth Williams illustrations. So I bought that.
You've made it big time. You've made it big time, girl. I love that. Well, I am reading, you'll have to, how do I pronounce the name, Jen? The last name, the Couriers of what?
Oh, Herodotus.
Okay, I knew I'd get it wrong. The Couriers of Herodotus.
Yeah. Yes.
Loving, by the way, loving. Okay, so this is and the reason I had Jen weigh in is because it's a shared author that we get to support. But this book is really, really cool. It's a beautiful, it's a fiction story. I don't get the opportunity to do very many fiction in the book marketing work that I do, but it's a beautiful fiction story that's based on historical elements. I love it, but it's really around airmail and the aviation industry and its evolution. And I am learning something in the process. But I'm learning more, Jen, than what I expected. And I want to just share 3 one-liners from the current chapter that I'm on. The author, Steve Williams, does a beautiful job of kind of laying out laying out a story that connects, that creates the glue and connects all of these beautiful pieces on airmail and aviation and beautiful storylines underneath. But the chapter I'm on right now, this pilot, Tom, is learning, is doing his first solo to be able to be considered like legit. And he acknowledges in this chapter 3 things that insights that Tom's dad told him over time. And I just think I underlined them because of course that's how my brain works, but I love them. And I think we all need to hear. I think a great way for us to close out today. The first one was, as long as there are people in the back, there will be people in the front. And that was a basis on Tom's dad sharing, as long as there are people who are going to get on planes, there will be a reason for pilots. And so as we think about the work we do, as long as there are people who will read our books, there will be books. As long as there are people who need our services, we can have a business. And so it's just a beautiful kind of one-liner to remind all of us that we might think that sometimes it's us than them, but really it's them that makes us, which I thought was really cool. Another one is life will be full of important choices. So you better learn to make them early. And it was a beautiful, and this is all on the same page, Jen. It's crazy. A beautiful reminder of, you're right. Just like what we started today, every part of our journey is choices. And so it's, I just love that while I'm reading this book about aviation, I'm getting life lessons. But my third one, I think, is probably my favorite. And it's a situation where he talks about kind of how messy things are. Tom in the book goes and is doing some deep cleaning. This is actually the pivotal part in the book where they start to talk about the airmail, because they uncover in a hangar. So, and I'm like, it's just interesting, Jen, all these things. So they uncover some really interesting things and start to piece together this history of airmail. But one of the things that his dad said was, this mess reminded him of his father saying many times, anything that seems like a great deal probably wasn't. I tell my kids that all the time. It's too good to be true. It's too good to be true. anyways, it
Uh,
made my heart happy to read some of these, and I thought it would be beautiful things to live by. So if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. If you get an editing quote that's too good to be true, it's probably not a
yeah,
good editing quote.
it's very true.
If you need people in the back to have the people in the front, if your book is not something someone will read, like you should pivot. You need a marketable book. You need the readers. And then what was the other one? Oh, make important choices. I tell everyone in the writing journey, Jen, if they're like, I don't have a lot of big budget, I don't know what to do. I'm like, every author needs a polished professional cover and an editing experience. So
very true.
non-negotiables. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that. I can't wait to dig into Steve's book. I'm very excited about it. It's
really good. I'm really enjoying it.
Love it.
Really, really enjoying it.
It just goes to show you, fiction has a wonderful message as well. It's not just
it absolutely does. It absolutely does. Well, Jen, next week we are going to come together at a different time. I think it's like a day later.
Yep.
Because you'll be traveling and have a different background. Be on a plane during this time. So those who tune in, just know we're going to be a different day next week. But we hope to see you here. And Jen, close us out. Send us away.
Well, authors, as we have talked about today, your words have power, your message has power, and you have power. So we invite you each week to come join us as we take that message to the page and beyond and help you with all things book related and helping you get your book out there. So have a wonderful week.
We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.